Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of this podcast. And today I'm really excited to share with you this new book. The book is interesting, fascinating, confused, well written, and other adjectives could be used to describe the same book. The author is Fyodor Dostoevsky, a Russian novelist from the 19th century. Until today, his books are well known around the world, and some of them are considered classicals. His writing and ideas, stated in his books, had an impact in several different areas. Famous books, such as Crime and Punishment, The Idiot, and The Brothers Karamazov, are marked by the exploration of psychological movements and ideas that somehow marked this period of history. In his youth, he went to a school in Moscow and then moved to the capital, St. Petersburg, where he lived surrounded by aristocratic classmates while being a son of professional middle classes, which sometimes could make him feel a little bit excluded. The writer worked as an engineer, but life took him to another road, and he went to Siberia, where he had to pass through forced labor for 4 years. It was when he returned that he discovered the writer who lived inside him. His books have the mark of being tragic, dark, and somehow represent the nature of the human being, exploring, as I said before, areas of psychology. Crime and Punishment is the book I'm going to share with you today. This book is considered one of the great achievements in the world of literature and was written in 1866. The novel follows the dilemmas of Rodion Raskolnikov, a young man who lives in St. Petersburg, the capital of Russia. Right at the beginning of the story, he plans to, spoiler alert, kill an old woman who collects valuable objects people bring to her in order to receive in exchange the money she considers the object's value. The rest of the story follows the journey of this man passing through a series of emotions, feelings, thoughts, and a journey in which he tries to justify his actions. The book is divided in 6 parts, each of them with 6, 7, or 8 chapters and an epilogue. Before I share with you what I think about the book, I want to give you some advice. Before reading the book, try to understand the context of Russia and the West when this book was written, so 19th century. This will help you to understand the dimension implicit in the story, in the characters, environments, dialogues, etc. So let's jump to my statements. I must say that this book gave me a roller coaster of feelings. In the same part of the book, you have space for frustration, anxiety, joy, sadness, empathy, and others that I'm not sure how to describe. There may be times where you just want the monologue of a character to end, the thought of the character to go a little bit slower and more comprehensible. Others where you want the character to say all the truth about what is rationing, what is thinking. And anyway, a roller coaster of emotions. And for me, this shows the power this book contains in engaging the reader with not only the characters, but the whole environment surrounded by them. It's impressive how description is the key for these great achievements that I think is the goal for the majority of writers, I guess, in being able to make the reader feel connected with the characters. Besides, I find it curious how each character presented in the book has a theme to explore, like a human dimension, but a realistic one. For example, with Raskolnikov, having a sex to his mind and rational process gives you controversial affections. It might provoke you confusion and misunderstanding, or surprise and shock. This happens because it represents how sometimes our mind are as confused as possible, and nothing seems to make sense, and especially we are not perfect, and as such, we make mistakes and we can see and understand absolute reality. That's why I think Raskolnikov could be a reflex of our our own nature. And during the plot, at a certain point, Raskolnikov compares himself with Napoleon, like being superior than the others, and serves this as a starting point to try to justify his actions. So, a theory he develops to justify the murder he did. I remember I was, we can say, intrigued by the main character when he is talking with Sonia, another character that is going to become someone important for Raskolnikov, and stated different justifications for the murder. It's like he's trying to find a rational justification for what he did, because basically he knows that if he does not go along with the rationality, he could not justify the murder. And I think this may show us how he's feeling something completely different that early on in the story. He thought he would feel through his reasoning and would not be affected by the act. We, as readers, might be able to identify with Raskolnikov because probably we are not going to do something equal to him. I hope not. But sometimes we think we know ourselves better than we do and might do something we think we are capable of. And sometimes we don't, and because we have our limits, and of course we can dream, but we have to be realistic. And another thing I found quite fascinating was the way the author makes the reader feel empathy and might even like the murder, even though it is a murder. And this could get the reader and the character closer in a way that we can see part of our nature and part of our life reflected in this young man. Also, when the other people try to help him, Sonia, Dunya, his sister, and Hazomikin, his friend, he pushes them away with his pride and self-centeredness until the right end, when a new feeling makes him realize the importance of thinking about others and not only ourselves. As I told you before, I think it is helpful to look at the context of Russia in the 19th century, the movements that were developed in this period, for example, the nihilism and the utilitarianism. And this will help you to understand the position of Dostoevsky and what are his intentions to pass with his characters. So the critics, he makes while describing the whole process of committing a crime and then the punishment of the crime, which comes really later in the book. It's right at the end, the punishment he gets. So I think the author focuses in the really punishment that it is given to the murderers. So to conclude this episode, I really recommend you to read this book because, first of all, it's a classic, so you must read it. But it is a different book from what we are used to, I think. And despite having a dark environment surrounding the story of the book, I think we can really learn with the story, and especially trying to pick the ideas of the book and try to understand how the author had the reality as a base to write this story, because it is amazing to understand, okay, he did write the story, but with the characteristics of the period when he was writing, to develop a whole different and exciting story. So I recommend you to read the book, and once you did, please comment in the comments what you like, what you didn't like, if you feel confused and all the roller coaster of the feelings, because I really want to know your opinion. And don't forget to like and subscribe to get the notifications for the other episodes. Thank you very much for your time. Have a nice week or weekend. Bye.